Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Steelers are probably signing Aaron Rodgers, but they're also doing a ton of work on the quarterbacks in this draft. So what's the plan there exactly? Also, are the Rockets the biggest threat to the Thunder in the West? And Tennessee's James Pearce may be a bad draft investment.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
So Aaron Rodgers did not announce he is joining the Pittsburgh Steelers at a certain media personalities live show in Pittsburgh, as some predicted. I was one of those people who predicted that might happen. And the Steelers, as they go through the pre-draft process, are taking a strong look at quarterbacks, potentially early quarterbacks. Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers joins me now. And Chris, we have talked about the mystery that is Aaron Rodgers, wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a blanket on the beach, apparently. And so let's not do that. But it seems like if he does go to Pittsburgh, there is going to be a Jordan Love situation that the Steelers are looking strongly at getting one of these quarterbacks early. Is this an either or situation, or is this a both situation?
I think this is a situation where they're going to keep their options open. I don't think that they're fully committed. Look, the Steelers have made it clear, like when Aaron Rodgers scheduled himself for a visit with them, and then it was out there, like, oh, the Steelers brought him in for a visit and they're really interested. And when he left with no deal, it's clear that the Steelers have given him an offer for what you're saying. It's a 1-year deal. It's not that. It's not like a whole bunch of money, like that was said by Mike Florio. So. It's clear that the Steelers are like, look, take this offer or don't. We have a plan. And I don't think that plan hinges in a major fashion on this year's draft class. I think what this year's draft class is a lot of backup quarterbacks. I think Cam Ward is a guy that I really want to see how he does in the NFL. I think he could be a starter. I think Shedeur Sanders has potentials that could get there, but I think there's a lot of things that he would have to really string together to make himself a consistent NFL quarterback. But from Jackson Dart to Jalen Milroe to everyone else, there's a Will Howard. A lot of these guys, I think, are backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think the Steelers are happy to take one of those guys either with their 3rd, 4th, or 5th round picks. It's why they're bringing in guys like Kyle McCord. It's why they're looking at all the quarterback options, to be sure, because they are in the market for a quarterback. They do want a quarterback, and I think they want to be prepared to make sure, like, hey, we're not passing over somebody, right? But ultimately, I do think the Steelers' big plan is they're trying to get a quarterback in next year's draft class that's expected to be a much heftier starting quarterback, franchise quarterback crop of quarterbacks to pick from.
So what I'm hearing is that, okay, they need a long-term solution here, but more likely in this draft, they're looking at developmental backup types because, look, Tyler Shuck is getting top 50 buzz, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, like those guys are potential first-round picks. They're taking a look at those top guys, Chris.
They are taking a look at those top guys, Peter, and I think that they're doing their due diligence to look at those top guys. But everything that I've been hearing is saying that, like, look, they still very much would prefer to get one of these top defensive tackles in the first round and then try to get one of those other quarterbacks. I think that, again, they're trying to make sure that, hey, they brought in Jackson Dart, but like I've also heard that, like, Jackson Dart is not a first-round quarterback in their eyes. They're looking to see, like, hey, if he falls to the 3rd, is that worth it? Because the Steelers are really big on, too, is they want to make sure they know guys. They want to make sure they have a relationship with guys. Like Justin Fields, when he did come to the Steelers, he's like, hey, I remember Mike Tomlin. We've talked. We have a relationship. When they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick, there was already a connection there because of the connection they established through the draft. A lot of times the Steelers will lay down will pave a road to say, like, hey, if it ever comes to, if we can't get this guy in here and someday that there's a chance there, we want to have like an open road so that they understand that that there could be a place for them there, that there's someone then for them to like here. That's something they do a lot. But I don't put a whole lot of stock in the first round options for the Steelers in this year's draft. If Shedeur Sanders falls to 21, that's the one that I think, there's a chance they could entertain it. But ultimately, I think this team, the way they've been positioning themselves, all the comp picks that they've been amassing for next season, I think everything lines up for it. They even said it kind of last year. They wanted to have a quarterback situation with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields for a 2-year situation. Neither of them worked out. but they wanted to have it so that they could kind of get them to 2026. That's been the plan, I think, for over a year now. I don't think that they are delineating from that plan. What I think they might be doing is they might be saying, hey, we might want to hedge our bets a little bit and at least try to, if we can get one of these guys, if we can trade back up into the second round, or if we use our third round pick to get one of these guys, they can be another shot at quarterback. But I do think that with the first round pick, they're probably still going DT, wide receiver, corner, one of those primary positions.
Okay, how does the arrival of Aaron Rodgers, if and when that happens, affect the urgency in your mind? Like, is it more likely if they sign Aaron Rodgers that they would eschew quarterback early, or is it mostly irrelevant because the plan is Aaron Rodgers is a one-year stopgap no matter what?
It's the latter, is what you just said. I think the whole plan for the Steelers right now is, look, unless Shedeur Sanders wowed the Steelers on Thursday when he talked to them and they're just like, you know what? That is our guy. I doubt that happened. But I think that the whole plan is, Aaron, you're here for a year. If not, we will rock out with Mason, a rookie, and maybe, another rookie. If they want to draft, say in the third round, they'll get Jalen Milroe, and in the fifth round, they'll get Kyle McCord. And they can say, all right, well, we got two young quarterbacks and we got an older quarterback in Mason Rudolph. And then, maybe we do that. I think that that's more along the lines that the Steelers are doing. I don't think that they are going hard for a quarterback in the first round. I think that they're covering their bases. They also try to put up the illusion of, hey, yeah, you know what? We are looking at a quarterback. Yeah, so don't worry about Kenneth Grant falling past you, because we're taking Jackson Dart, and then all of a sudden they snatch up the guy that they're really looking for there. I think that that's more closer to what the Steelers are looking at here. But hey, this team did take Kenny Pickett a few years ago when I was slotting them to look at tackles and corners and things. So I could be wrong again there. But I don't think that Shedeur Sanders, at least in my grades and for what I understand, things fits there. And I'm definitely not Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe. Those guys, to me, are second, third round picks at best.
Stay up to date all year on the Pittsburgh Steelers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Steelers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, are the Rockets the biggest threat to the Thunder out west? Before we answer that, Deshaun Watson has no shortage of belief he can come back and play. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Deshaun Watson wants you to know he believes in himself. In a video posted on Instagram Wednesday documenting his rehab at the Browns practice facility, Watson said, "Everyone's doubting me. Everyone doesn't believe in me. Everyone doesn't think that I can get back to where I was. I know I'm going to be way better than before." The Browns quarterback has been rehabbing after re-tearing his right Achilles tendon, a diagnosis that could sideline him for most, if not all, of the 2025 season. Let's not forget, one of those doubters is the Browns' actual owner. In the NBA, the Pistons took down the Knicks.
In the beginning of this game, because part of me almost thought at the beginning of this game that the Knicks would, they're sitting two players, they're sitting two of their starters. Are they just kind of like taking it easy? They don't really want to send a message to the Pistons like I thought maybe they would. If that case, okay, then there's not that big of a deal. But early in this game, in the first quarter, the Knicks were talking so heavy to the Detroit Pistons and trying to send a message to them. It was very clear. It was very clear from the get-go, the physicality the Knicks were playing with, how they were playing, and the type of trash talk, how often, how just blatant they were getting in the Pistons' faces, and how much they were talking. They were trying to bully the Pistons. They were trying to set the tone and let them know, you guys do not want this matchup. We hear all the rumors about you guys want us in the playoffs. You guys think we're a better matchup than the Pacers. We're here to send you a message. You guys do not want us. You guys are not on our level. And the first half, not going to lie, they had us in the first half. The Knicks were up by double digits. They were playing really well. Their offense was clicking. The Pistons defense couldn't get any stops. Their offense was really struggling in the half court. In the first half, it looked like, okay, this might get out of hand. But the Pistons cut the lead down. They dwindled it down. And they end up beating the Knicks. And the team that was going from talking so much in the beginning of this game, all of a sudden was very quiet in that second half.
And the Pacers narrowly beat the Cavs.
Tony East here on the floor of Gamebridge Fieldhouse, where the Pacers just won a game. It means they'll be hosting a series on this court in the first round of the playoffs. They beat the air quotes Cavaliers in this one, 114-112. No Donovan Mitchell, no Darius Garland, no Evan Mobley, no Max Strus for the Cavs. And their fifth starter, Jared Allen, only played the first half in his quest to play 82 games, so it wasn't the real Cavs, yet the bench Cavs gave the Pacers a ton of trouble. They were hitting threes like crazy in the fourth quarter. The Pacers could not go on any sort of extended run in this game. Their offense was choppy at times, their defense was choppy at times, but late, when the Cavs go to their deep bench group, the Pacers summoned just enough to get it done. 2 huge threes from Tyrese Haliburton, some big defensive plays. They get the stops late. One pretty, but they don't care how it looks. They care about the result. They got it. Win number 49 for the Pacers. They will be either the 3rd or 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. They will host either the Bucks or Pistons on this floor, and we will have much more on Locked On Pacers.
What if I told you there was a team with the 4th best point differential in the entire league, a roster that plays hard every night, that is currently in 2nd place in their conference? That sounds like a contender to me. Well, it's the Houston Rockets. And for some reason, I keep hearing every team wants to play the Houston Rockets in a first-round matchup. Jackson Gatlin from Locked On Rockets joins me now. And Jackson, the last time we had you on, it was sort of like, are these baby Rockets for real? They keep winning. Like, at a certain point, we just have to take them seriously, don't we?
Yeah, look, I think the Rockets are currently kind of suffering from the curse that every young, successful team suffers from, and that's people are going to throw youth and inexperience as this Rockets team as a reason to not believe in them. And that's perfectly fine. In fact, I think that this Rockets team would love to be considered kind of the underdog, right? Even though they're the 2 seed, even though they've been the 4th best team in the NBA for most of the season, I think that they're totally okay with going into their first playoff series in the Ime Udoka era being underestimated a little bit. They're going to surprise a lot of teams out there, Peter. There's no team that this Rockets team can't absolutely match up well against in a 7-game series. And so for all those teams, all those organizations that are saying, oh, we hope we get the Rockets, we want the Rockets, I think people are going to be sorely mistaken about that. And they're going to, whatever team does ultimately draw the Rockets in the first round is going to regret having to face this team that is the most physical team in the NBA, one of the best defenses in the NBA, has one of the best, most exciting young cores of talent in the NBA. And it very much feels like this is going to be their kind of coming out party this postseason.
I agree with everything you said. And yet, if they get the Warriors or the Timberwolves in the first round, like, those are teams with, certainly in the case of the Warriors, proven playoff players. Anthony Edwards in Minnesota is going to rightly feel like he's the best player in that series. And we know in the NBA, a playoff series can come down to who has the best guy. So tell me why I should take the Rockets seriously in those matchups.
I think you're absolutely right, and you hit the nail on the head there. That is going to be one, and it remains a much more legitimate argument against the Rockets than the whole, oh, they're young, they're inexperienced, they need to lose a series or 2 before they can win. I've never really subscribed to that notion. If you're a good team, you can win right out the gate. You don't need to go through a playoff, a second round loss or a Western Conference Finals loss to then be able to go all the way. The Rockets have the talent and the identity to potentially go all the way this season. What is going to hold them back is they do not have that go-to guy just yet. Alperen Şengün and Jalen Green are the closest they have to a consistent tier 1 go-to guy late in games. And we've seen various points this season where Alp has been the closer, where Jalen has been the closer. Sometimes they're both the closer together, right? It requires that 2-man game between the two of them to be better than the team facing you across the aisle. And that's where you have the Warriors with Steph and Jimmy and the Wolves with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle to a lesser extent, right? Guys who are proven playoff performers who have been there in the biggest moments and know what it feels like and know how to deliver in those moments. That is going to be the big test for this Rockets team. But What if I raised you the question, Peter, and said, man, look at that Warriors roster. They got a bunch of unproven guys up and down that roster. Outside of their big three with Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, they've got a ton of unproven, inexperienced young guys, a roster that's kind of cobbled together around their big three. You could very easily point to that. You could point to the Timberwolves and how they flamed out of last year's playoffs, right? Do they have enough around Anthony Edwards to be able to make a deep postseason run? Every team has their flaws. Every team has their question marks. I think some of the question marks for some of the other teams lower in the standings than the Rockets are going to prove to be a bigger issue than not knowing if it's going to be Jalen Green or Alperen Sengun able to step up on a night-to-night basis in the playoffs.
I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to understand, I promise it is not as patronizing as maybe it sounds, which is always a good preamble, right? But let's say they win a round even. What do you want to learn about this team? Because I feel like that's the key thing is you go into next year, you need to know what do they need to do? What do they need to get better at? Where do they need to find that piece? Or, hey, actually, it turns out Ahmed Thompson is ready to go right now to be who they need him to be in the postseason. What do you want to learn about the Rockets in a playoffs this year?
I think the most important thing is going to be to see how do Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun ultimately perform, because you need to be able to figure out, you need to have the data points on those two guys in particular to figure out, are we comfortable, are we confident in one of or both of them continuing to be the mainstays that this team is ultimately built around? Right now, this Rockets team feels like, you know, a bunch of really talented pieces that are all, you know, together on the same roster that don't necessarily all fit perfectly together. But because Ime Udoka is a very talented head coach, he's gotten a lot of success out of this squad. But there's definitely pieces, like if you look at Alperen Sengun, right, he's got the baby Jokic kind of skill set. Ideally, you would want to surround him with as much shooting as possible. You would want to punish the ever-living hell out of opposing teams for ever thinking to double team him down low when he gets to work in the paint. The Rockets don't really have a ton of great shooters. Dillon Brooks is the only above average three-point shooter on the roster this entire season for this team. That is a red flag when you're looking at building a team potentially around Alperen Sengun. Jalen Green, another question mark. How would you want to build around him? Would you want a five like Alperen Sengun, who's not really a floor spacing five, next to Jalen Green? Or would you be better served with a more run and gun, up tempo kind of style, a five who can space the floor a little bit and open up some of those driving lanes for him? The Rockets, it feels like, haven't settled into an identity yet for the offensive side of the ball. They know who they are defensively. They fight hard every single night. Ime Udoka has gotten the absolute most out of this group of guys. Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun are now plus level defenders, which is incredible statement to be able to make 2 years removed from the Steven Silas era where the Rockets couldn't defend a traffic cone. So to have all that development, right, they haven't really settled yet on an identity for who they're going to be offensively. And a big part of that is they don't know who their best player is going to be yet. It's been Alperen Sengun, and Jalen Green's had some incredibly promising flashes where he looks like he could be a leading scorer in the NBA one day. But the consistency has been the issue with Jalen. Amin Thompson has superstar upside. Who do they ultimately settle on is going to be the focal point of their team moving forward, and that'll inform a lot of their decisions this offseason. That's kind of what I want to learn about this team this postseason. I don't know if we'll get all those answers, but hopefully we get some of them.
Stay up to date all year on the Houston Rockets by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Rockets on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, does James Pearce just have too many red flags? Red flags should not be ignored when it comes to the NFL draft. Just ask the Bengals and Jermaine Burton. As Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson discussed, some red flags make it seem as though James Pearce won't just fall in the first round, but he may be undraftable.
And here's what's funny, and this is why I wanted to add James Pearce to this. James Pearce sounds more damning to me as far as the anonymous scouts go and the information you can find.
Yeah,
James Pearce, they said that while the team is over having workouts, he's like hanging out in his apartment. He just doesn't care that much, right? And so that's a big red flag for me, more than how many schools you went to. And to be honest with you, with Walter Nolan, okay, you're quiet. Not everyone has to be a vocal leader. You got a good locker room or whatever. Are you a bad person? Or are you even more ready to be a professional than anybody else because you've been signing contracts since you were 15 years old, right? So I could even view it as a good thing potentially with Walter Nolan. Now, maybe there's a lot more there we don't know about, and I'm sure there is with all these guys.
Probably.
But yeah, and Pierce is one where like doesn't hang out with his teammates. You watch him during the games, he's on the bench and he's 20 yards away from anybody. And the quote that really gets me with James Pearce was, and it was kind of a third-hand quote even then, but it was one of the anonymous scouts in the McGinn article, Matt, said that the scout asked the coaching staff at Tennessee, hey, if you guys got a job in the NFL and you all went to the NFL, would you take James Pearce with you? And they're like, no. I mean, I'm not drafting that guy. If that's how your own, and this guy's stupidly talented and you wouldn't even take him with you to the NFL. That's saying something.
You said a lot there. I don't have much to add, but I do think there's a big difference from being different or a loner or not one of the boys in the locker room as opposed to, I hate that dude. I'd be so much happier if he wasn't here. He's taking oxygen from the room. I don't want to be with him. I don't want to be near him on the plane. I hate that he's in my team meeting room for whatever reason, whether he's a good player, bad player, or whatever. I mean, obviously it's a lot easier if it's Lawrence Taylor and he shows up late because he's doing cocaine all night or whatever than it is someone that's a bust first-round pick.
This whole situation is starting to remind me a little too much of Ja'Kai Polite. Back in 2019, heading into that draft, there were whispers, rumors, reporting around Ja'Kai Polite. An outstanding final season at Florida had him as a potential first-round pick. But there was this issue. It wasn't anything specific. There was no inciting incident. There was nothing concrete you could point to. You just heard bad reports, bad things. There were concerns you'd hear. That's the kind of stuff that we're hearing about James Pearce. It's not anything specific. There was no bad deed done that we know about. It's just it's kind of not the guy you want. That's pretty nebulous. But with Ja'Kai Polite, he ends up getting taken in the third round of that draft, 68 overall. He goes to the New York Jets. They cut him in August. This is a third-round pick, a high third-round pick that didn't even make their opening day roster. He goes to the practice squad in Seattle, is there for less than a month, goes to the Rams, and within a year is out of the NFL. Played a season in Canada on practice squads. He went from being a potential first-round pick to a high third-round pick to out of the NFL in less than 4 years. The character piece is every bit as important as what is happening on the field. I don't know the truth. I can't see the future on James Pearce. I just know we've seen this go really bad in the past. And we've also seen players who have turned this around in the NFL that have proven any doubters wrong. You would hope that we would be able to give 21, 22, 23-year-olds some grace to grow, to mature, to find their path. I hope he does. And finally, speaking of growing and maturing, if you want to know how to make an impression on someone, just ask amateur golfer Jose Luis Ballester. The 21-year-old Spaniard who plays at Arizona State was in need of a bathroom break at Augusta for the Masters. And when you got to go, I guess you just got to go. Ballester said he forgot there were bathrooms just to the left of the tee box on the 13th hole. So he ran down to the tributary of Rays Creek and relieved himself while playing partner Justin Thomas was still on the 12th green. It's almost a little on the nose that he went to Arizona State. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, whose start to this season do we buy the most in Major League Baseball? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.